So, Erica, start when you can, and tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll go around the room, and then we'll start with everybody just telling us a little bit about them.
Okay, so not the bios then?
No, just tell us a little bit about you.
Okay. Sure. Hi, I'm Erica. I am a professional cheerleader, which sounds like everyone thinks I should be wearing teeny tiny outfits, but the other kind, the kind that cheers and encourages other people. So I am a former competitive cheerleader and collegiate cheerleading coach who turned it into cheering for the accomplishments and achievements of other folks, because it turns out that's where I find my greatest sense of value is in being a source of encouragement and support for other folks. I'm a mom of 2 elementary schoolers and a dog and a cat who both decided to join me. They've left me alone all day, but now you'll see them hop on the couch in my office, I suspect, at some point. But I work in professional development and strategic planning and tactical mapping to help individuals and teams look at their authentic selves. My company is called Strategically Authentic. That's a very intentional choice, of course. And so I look at the way that we take who we are and turn it into where we want to go.
Thanks, Erica. Yeah. We'll go to Jessica next.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Jessica Potts, and I'm the president of Inspired Strategy Group. And much like Erica, I help leaders build their dream teams. And I do that by helping people get on the same page and get things done while having fun. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Thanks, Jess. Kanchan, we'll go to you.
Hello, everyone. I am thrilled to be here because my entire commitment and passion is to women of color leaders. And I am a mother, and a newly future son-in-law has joined our family this past weekend. Thrilled to be here and start talking about authenticity.
All right. So hello, everyone. I'm Sharon Babineau. I'm from outside of Toronto, and I'm the co-founder of Mindful Solutions for Change, and really talking a lot about work-life balance. And I'll share some of that later. Thank you.
And Lori.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lori Flasco from Lori Flasco and Associates. I am a trainer, speaker, coach. My expertise around creating a great customer experience. And I also do a lot of speaking around kindness. And I'm currently studying at the University of Stanford in the Compassion Institute there. So thank you. It's nice to be here.
Awesome, Lori. We'd love to hear more about that. Next, we have Lubna, who is from Florida. You're unmuted, you're saying, and we can't hear you. Okay, we'll come back to you then. Colleen, if you can unmute and introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Hi, everyone. So wonderful to be here. My name is Colleen Santini. In 1971, Carole King wrote, "I feel the earth move under my feet." And I started doing yoga in that year. So I've been doing yoga a lot of my life. And I like to help people with their anxiety and solve whatever problems they have that can be helped with their mind and their emotions and their spirit. I also lead online classes, and authenticity is part of the deal with yoga and meditation. So I'm thrilled to be here and meet all these gorgeous, beautiful women.
And we have Miss Penny Trombley, who is back with us in North Bay. Hi, Penny.
Hi, everyone. I'm Penny Trombley. I teach people how to play nice in the sandbox at work, and when they don't, to help them fix broken relationships. I do conflict resolution, mediation, training, and keynotes. And my biggest passion is helping women really stand up and find their voice and speak up, because playing nice doesn't always mean being nice.
Isn't that true? Thanks, Ben. Lubna, you're okay now, right, to speak? Looks like you're off mute. Lubna, we've lost her. All right. Well, I'm going to tell you who I am, and hopefully we'll get Lubna again. It's so unfortunate that we're not able to hear Lubna. So my name is Roxanne Durhaj. My background is I'm a psychotherapist. I talk about authentic connections, either at home or at work. And what I wanted to moderate this room because I'm around, as you can see, these fantastic women that I know. And like I said, Erica, we're not going to bring into the fold because she talks about authenticity. And what I loved about her, her signature is authentically yours. And I thought, can I steal that? Is that kind of legal? I'm not so sure, but I'm thinking about it, Erica. So today, we were going to talk is just about authenticity from your perspective. So there was a quote that I found quite interesting, and I wanted to share it with you. And it says, it's by Nelson Mandela. And he says, what counts as life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to lives of others that determine the significance of the life we lead. And that was pretty profound for me and in kind of all the work that I do and for a lot of the work that I know most of you do. So what we're going to do is just open up and start talking about some questions about authenticity. And it sounds like Lubna has sound. Lubna? She doesn't have sound. Oh my goodness. All right, we'll wait, and if she comes back, we'll let her in. So the first question that we wanted to talk about is, what is authentic leadership or heart leadership mean to you? So I don't know if there's anybody that wants to kind of, let me know what their perspective is, or, just raise your hand if you wanted to, and then we'll have you take the floor. Okay, go ahead, Concha.
I'm not sure where I heard this, but it's something that is just really stuck in my mind around authenticity. It's that being authentic is when your values and your actions hold hands. I don't know if anyone's heard that before, but I absolutely have loved it and have used it a lot with people I work with. But actions and your values holding hands.
That's really nice. I've not heard that before. Mm-hmm. So it makes such sense, right? So if we are deeply connected to ourselves, that congruence would exist between what's happening internally within us, and it would reflect outwards to our actions.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense to everybody? Anybody want to add any perspective other than what does it mean to you? Go ahead, Erica.
I think that there's, in a very serious but superficial way, I think the secondary component of that is, if it were up to, for example, nature, this is not what you all would see today. So I think there's an important layer of authenticity that is honoring externally how you feel internally. Mm-hmm. I did not wake up with bright pink lips. I did not start Saturday morning with this color of hair, right? So I think the authenticity piece, we get so caught up in the deeper components that we lose sight sometimes of the significance of those pieces that feel, because culturally we've been told they feel frivolous, but I feel my very best as I feel my very best. And that's really important. And I think that gets lost, especially for women. We are labeled and invited to show up certain ways. And one of the joys of leading a life of authenticity is ignoring all those invitations and showing up as I am instead.
So not being stuck with a stereotype.
Correct.
But being authentic to who you are, like looking a certain way or showing up a certain way, is really something that comes from within each person.
Correct. And I think it helps for those of us who are speakers too. When you show up authentically externally, then I think participants don't spend 5 minutes reconciling your external with the energy that you're bringing out. If I were to show up to stand on a stage and give a keynote in a pencil skirt and a black blazer, which is beautiful and looks amazing on some folks, but not me, it would take people 5 minutes to figure out who I am. But when I show up in this shirt that was gifted to me by my children recently as a stage shirt, they called it, if I show up like this, then people know who I am and they know what to expect. So it's an invitation to meet me and a declarative about who I am. So I think that layer of authenticity sometimes gets lost in the shuffle because it seems silly and superficial. But for women, I think it's as important as any of the other layers of work.
Penny, I think you had your hand up. You were going to say something.
Yes, authenticity to me means genuine, and in conversation, in conflict and conflict resolution, to have authentic conversation means just to be really honest. And that's why playing nice doesn't always mean being nice, because what's honest isn't always nice, but it's true. And I have experienced so many times when humans can connect with some really honest, vulnerable conversation, and it's like magic glue, that they just click because there's no facade. And we just tend to really empathize with the human element of imperfections or, weaknesses or vulnerabilities or strengths. But, as our last speaker, I need my glasses here, as Erica just said, when people are wearing a mask or when they are energetically, hidden behind walls, people sense that. And there's not that magnetic attraction so much. So it really, to me, it's not really about the packaging. It's about the honesty.
Go ahead, Colleen.
Thank you. I'm getting a feedback. Is somebody else? Are you getting feedback? There we go. Okay. I resonate with what you both have said. And I feel like something that is important about authenticity is putting your blood and guts into something. It's like being willing to really stand for what you stand in, to stand for what you do stand for, being truthful about it, and having the guts to lay it on the floor and be like blood on the path. You need to have blood on the path. And what it is being true and standing for what you actually stand for. I think that's a really key component it's like there's a risk involved there, and being willing to risk and and lay your heart on the line there. And in whatever you're doing, there's a vulnerability, a risk, and I think that's important with authenticity.
Sharon, I saw your hand go up. I don't know if I missed anybody else. If you, I feel like you're in class, but if you
I know.
in case I missed you, did you want to add to what Colleen was saying, or did you have a different perspective on it?
Maybe different, maybe kind of the same, said differently. Just a thought came up. So sorry, Colleen, were you finished? Yes. Okay. Just thinking that recognizing that positive change starts with ourself. So I would never ask somebody else to do something that I wasn't willing to do. And so just that accountability to myself. And then, so when we think of authentic heart leadership, I think of having compassion for not only others, but myself when things go wrong or I don't meet my own expectations, which sometimes can be a very high bar. And so having that compassionate tone. And the last piece I was thinking about was intention and motivation, always checking that. Where is it coming from? And if it's coming from a place that I feel is going to benefit everyone, then, maybe I'll speak my mind. And if not, then maybe I won't.
Oh, Roxanne, you're mute. So you might be calling me. Are you? Okay, good. Thank you. Oh my gosh, such great responses. And I love the first one, values and actions holding hands. That's when I think about being authentic, I certainly think about being real and, that as Penny talked about the vulnerability. And I see the, really having those strong, clear values and then walking them, because there's many times where people say they're one thing and then do another. And being authentic, I think, is around following those values and what you set forth. And just as Sharon talked about, you are always, Roxanne, about authenticity, but also that heart authenticity. And I think when we think about that, it is around bringing compassion and kindness, certainly head and heart coming together. And I think that that's key as well. So great points from everyone.
Lubna, do you have sound?
Can you hear me?
Oh my goodness. Woo!
I was trying to be fancy with my buds, but didn't work.
Oh, you see.
So hello, everyone.
Lubna, don't get fancy.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I was as fancy as it gets. Hello, everyone. My name is Lubna. I've worked in corporate for 21 years and 5 years outside of it. And Laurie and Roxanne, you brought to me the idea of self-awareness, because sometimes we miss the boat on our values. And when I work with clients, I notice that whenever they're talking about values, they go to somebody else, because it's so hard for us to really be grounded and resonate in the values unless you've had a trauma or you've had a significant mentor in your life who has made that change. But what comes to mind for me is what Mahatma Gandhi says, and I love, and I have it as a big poster in my office, the dark office, the writing office. And it's happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony. And to me, so authentic heart and happiness seem to be very aligned, right? So when I know that what I'm saying is exactly what I'm thinking, and what I'm thinking is very aligned to my actions, we see happiness, right? And we see authenticity. And when a leader is authentic, it shows in their productivity, in their engagement scores, in their retention scores, and absolutely in their recruitment scores. So I think that to me what it meant.
But I'm going to play devil's advocate and go off script here and say that there's a lot of companies where they're still getting, a massive growth with inauthentic leaders. So why do you think that is? I'm throwing that out there because, we often hear, and I've lived in, and worked in environments, and I'm like, how is that person getting pulled up the ranks? It's happening all the time. And then you kind of go, well, I shouldn't say anything, because, so I'm curious about perspective about that in corporate.
I think it's a great question, Roxanne, because absolutely companies flourish. I guess the piece that I would say is the longevity of it. And it's the longevity of the people that are within the organization. I think if we've all got a target point being to be money's the bottom is the rider, that's what's going to rise to the top. And people will reach whatever that means for them and exit. So the sustainability of any organization is the piece that's going to be different. How long will they be able to stay as a corporation and not just be up and down, or be so cultured, have the culture completely focus on something else besides who the people are within it?
There also may be a layer too of leadership is performance art for some folks. And so that's never going to be necessarily authentic. And it is a matter of performing to the alignment of the company. So depending on who is observing the behavior, there's a huge difference between this person that I report to is inconsistent. I think one of the things I was thinking about as everyone was speaking and sharing their thoughts is that authenticity often should reflect consistency, right? Because who I am is who I am is who I am. And who I am should show up consistently. So when you show up at a meeting and I'm always the same person, and that is authentic and true to who I am, that's what you know. But who I perform as for someone who gets to decide whether or not I keep my job may look different. And so that performance art piece of leadership can really impact, Roxanne, what you were talking about as far as the promotion and sustaining of inauthentic leaders, because they figured out how to demonstrate alignment with either declared and publicly stated expectations, visions, values of a company, or the internal, unofficial, here's how you get ahead, expectations, visions, and values. So I think that that's sort of the piece is, in some environments, you actually are markedly more successful as an inauthentic leader because that performance art matters more than the leadership itself, but that is dictated by the top down. So if the top doesn't care about authenticity, then it doesn't matter if you're inauthentic along the way.
So that would be diametrically opposed to what Kanchan just said, because short-term versus long-term, right? So I think I've met one or two performance artists in my time in corporate, and I've watched them leapfrog up. And then I kept thinking, somebody's going to see this. Somebody's going to see this. And then it doesn't happen. And maybe in their tenure of their corporate life, it catches up. But I'm just wondering, is it that different sectors put up with more inauthentic behaviors versus others? Or I'm just curious, because I know in working with different sectors, there's certain corporate values that if you were to put it into another corporate value system, it wouldn't exist. So I'm curious about people's perspective on that.
I think sometimes the most noble organizations, by far most noble, may breed the most toxic leaders. And those leaders have something, a strength that, something they're really good at. And an example, Roxanne, that I wanted to share with you is, and with the team, of course, is a physician, a surgeon that is absolutely exceptional in his work, and yet has the worst attitude, of creating toxic environments. And so you get the balance between saving a child or a patient versus firing, one of this unique, most amazing surgeons out there. And so there's that struggle, I think, that keeps people going up on the ladder and moving up because of a skill. I think the hidden cost of morale and disengagement, which are non-tangible and very difficult to measure, right? Very difficult to measure. And that's what excites boards, for example, and C-level suites. They want those tangible numbers to mean something. And I think it's something we will continue to experience until there's stronger voices, and I would say female voices, that create the change.
Mute, Roxanne.
I'm on mute. So I'm going to move on. So this is like a conversation that you hear often from people, right? I love that term, performance art, because I've seen it and I've seen people climb, but then in different corporate settings, some behaviors are accepted. And I can think of it. An example is the Law Society. I managed them for a lot of years. Well, I would sweat bullets every time I went in to do reports for them, because I felt like I was in a criminal witness stand, quite literally, because they would find the 0.01% that was not applicable in my statistical trending analysis of their data. So then, and after a while, like 3 years after, I'm like, oh, okay, that's just what they do. Oh, well, see you next quarter, Roxanne. And I'm like, because they were lawyering in every context, but it worked in their environment, kind of thing. So that's an interesting kind of change, right? Like, or shift that I see depending on the context of the environment and corporate culture. Some environments, I think you can be open-ended, like you said, Lubna, to your point about physicians. Some people are going to say, I don't care what my physician's like, so long as he fixed my heart, right? Or, my lawyer is horrible, but he wins my case. So it depends, again, on the role and the responsibilities and how authenticity plays through that. So maybe based on the environment, authenticity means different things to the sector and the corporate culture within which we're talking about.
Roxanne, I just want to jump into that too, because at that point, there's not really a measure. So for example, the physician who heals you, right? They've done a great job, and maybe they don't bring the heart to it, and you are never going to see the difference when they do. So the difference when they bring the head and the heart together improves healing overall for that patient. Whereas if you just kind of landed it at the head part and not including the other piece, you're going to get certainly, yes, they did what they were supposed to do, but they're missing a piece, and we might never measure that missing gap otherwise. So I think when you combine the two, you'll see the big difference.
And to Louis' point is, how do you get the metrics, right? Mm-hmm. So is it incidental absences? Is it short-term claims? Is it long-term claims? Is it arbitrations? Is it, human rights claims? right? Because that's quantitative on one end, but the qualitative end is the other part, which is the people part, right? So
Right.
if Penny's my boss and I don't like Penny, I kind of find things to do, so I'm not in the same room as Penny. So how do you quantify that? Maybe in health trending analysis, if there's more conflict, which Penny could talk to a little bit more, the data is going to show if people are dysregulated because they have toxic kind of interactions. Then if I'm on guard all the time, I'm outside of my window of tolerance, and I'm going to make myself sick, and so that's going to bear out somewhere within the environment as well. So this is quite fascinating information that I'm sure most of you, as you do work, whether it's Colleen helping people get more connected in their body, that we start to recognize that the importance of what Lori talks about, which is kindness, right? We want people to be kind and gentle, but unfortunately, not everybody sees things the same way. So I'm gonna bring up another concept. And why do you think? What are some things that make people struggle with authenticity in your world? Go ahead, Jessica.
Thanks, Roxanne. I think that having lived through an authenticity crisis in my early to mid 20s, I think I'm well qualified to speak on this one. The roots of not being authentic, I think, really stem from insecurity, inferiority complex, and imposter syndrome. And so going back to that brilliant comment that Kanchan brought to us at the beginning, authenticity is when your values and your actions hold hands. And so, having lived through experiences where, I was the youngest person working in my office place in my 20s, and I was trying to be the person that I thought my much older clients needed me to be. So I was trying to be something that I thought other people wanted instead of being true to myself. And to Erica's point about, wearing what, reflecting on the outside, what's on the inside, it wasn't until a great friend said to me, "Why do you dress like a librarian?" that it finally dawned on me. And what she meant was I was wearing, monochromatic navy blue suits because, again, I thought that's what my older clients wanted to see from me. I thought that's how I could be taken seriously. And then I'd look at her and she'd be walking in. We worked for a municipality, and she'd be walking in one shoulder shirts looking like she was going out to a bar. But meanwhile, she was about to go down into a manhole and do some stuff in the engineering department. And so looking at her really made me appreciate she shows up as her full self, and she's so confident and she's so authentic, and it's so enviable. How can I do more of that myself? And so the struggle is real, but really connecting with who you are and understanding your own values as well as the value that you can put out into the world is going to be the first step to living a more authentic life, and why people struggle with it so much, because we're just not in touch.
Something dramatic. The most colorful person, one of the most colorful people in your brand, Jessica. So what happened? What did you do?
I heeded her advice. First of all, is, again, that authenticity crisis was really real. And I had to take a good hard look at myself and say, what value do I have to bring to the world? And so it was really an internal look and the discovery of a concept called strengths-based development that starts to focus on what's right with people instead of fixating on what's wrong with people. And I think that that's a cultural thing, whether that's the organization's culture or our broader culture. We're so fixated on what's wrong with people that people don't feel like they have permission to be their true selves.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that want to say something about this. So just let me know and just unmute yourself, because this I want to hear. Erica, you want to go first? And then
this is fast. Penny, I saw your arm too. We were in a race. Perpetual life of my children. It's always a race at the dinner table who's talking. One thing that I talk about a lot in both my keynote space and in client work is the authentic definition of success. So if you look at the Merriam-Webster dictionary version of success as a definition, it's rooted in financial accomplishment and notoriety. And for most of us, our definition of success is linked more to impact. And this kind of goes back, Jessica, to a little bit of what you were just talking about. So I think I'll make this really short, but I think one of the biggest barriers to embracing authenticity is striving for someone else's definition of success. Because then what happens is you get there and you look around and you go, I don't even care that I'm here. None of this matters to me. So the call to action is when someone is struggling or when someone is trying to figure out that alignment piece, it is, have I assessed my own definition of success? And it's two-part. Does my definition of success professionally allow for my definition of success personally? And if they don't, where am I willing to adjust either timetables or expectations? So those things I think are the biggest barriers to sitting in an authentic space and having that sense of self that feels like recognizable in the mirror, not just from an external standpoint, but at the end of the day, when you wash your face and brush your teeth and you look at yourself and you say, was I myself today? If you spent the whole day working towards someone else's definition of success and use their metrics to assess your accomplishment, then you'll never be able to really answer it that way.
There would always be a struggle, right? There would always be a struggle between, I think of when I was in corporate, for instance, and we're talking, goodness, I've not been in corporate for 12 years now. And at my level, there was a lot of females that put off having children, right? Because of the share hours. And I would look around and go, is it me? Am I but at that level, a lot of people delayed their goals. So that's a good point that you make. Are you living in that space where you could feel like I'm addressing what I need at home and also what I need at work? And in the corporate realm that I was at, a lot of people delayed that, and because the hours were insane, right? So they wanted to start a family and they wanted to do certain things, but they delayed it. And, I wonder today if where things led to some of those people putting off those things. Kanchan, did you want it? Who was next?
Penny after, or Penny or Sharon, yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Penny, and then we'll have Sharon, and we'll come back.
Okay, well, this will be short. I back to your original question about what stands in the way of people being authentic. I think that it's a short word. It's ego. Just as Jessica said, and Erica alluded to, we feel that we have to perform or personify somebody other than ourselves, and the antidote to ego, in my opinion, is just to be able to be humble. Humility is a really amazing leadership skill that we don't talk about very often, but it basically gives you an opportunity to recognize that you're not above anyone, but you're not below anyone either. We sit in a circle, meaning, we're all on the same level. We're all important. We all matter. We all bring contributions. We all have strengths. We all have weaknesses. But in the morning, when you're brushing your hair and brushing your teeth, or at night and you're looking in the mirror, I think one of the challenges that we have, especially as women, is knowing that we're enough. Just knowing that we're enough, having the faith to know that, and the trust to know that no matter where we are and what happened, if we just do our best, everything's going to work out more perfectly than we could have imagined. And just being comfortable with being in our own space and skin and situation and ups and downs or whatever, that this is just who I am and where I'm at right now. And that's a workout for me. That's a daily workout for me.
Sharon, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just to share my beginning, I guess, of being in the workplace. Fresh out of high school, saw a sign on the bus, join the military, travel the world. And I thought, what a great idea, this would be fantastic. And without even telling my parents, I joined. I was 18 and signed up for a minimum 5 years. And they cut my hair off. You can see it's grown. It's been decades. But I was so excited, to serve my country. That's all I could think about, and to be a peacekeeper. And what happened was the military, there was a lot of trades that were all male. And so this is late 70s. And so they were basically told to either allow women in or prove they can't do the job. But you can't just not allow them in, like just flat out in certain trades. And so I was a mechanic. And so I ended up signing up for this trial. And for 3 years, we went and served in NATO in Germany. And I got off the plane and everybody hated me. I mean, they didn't even know me. I mean, if you got to know me and you hated me, that's on me, but you don't even know me and you just form this opinion. It was this idea of a female taking a man's job. And I remember very clearly it being told to me, and it's like, you are taking food off the table of a man and his family. And I just remember being so crushed. And you know, it didn't let up for the 3 years I was there. There were the younger men, maybe a little kinder, the older one, very set in their ways. And it was, you know, it was really hard. Like, do I quit? I didn't want to. I loved my career. I was proud to serve my country as well. And, you know, if I fast forward 10 years, I'm married. My husband is diagnosed with a terminal illness and he dies. And now I have 2 small children. And thankfully, I still had that career. I had that income, you know, so this idea of it's, you know, one or the other, you know, for me, it was like, if I couldn't have the same jobs as men, and we make up I think we're actually over 50% of the workforce, then how are we supposed to cope? How are we supposed to empower our kids? How are we supposed to feel good about ourselves? You know, so that was a struggle. And I did stay in for 20 years, but those 3 years in the field, dirty, and you know, I wasn't doing a good job all the time. It's like driving tanks and you know, digging ditches and all this stuff. You know, and you're so exhausted, and you just, you know, I just kept thinking, do I give up? And it was just, I don't think it was in my vocabulary. I just couldn't. And I just felt the weight of all the other women, you know, to come after me. And I just pushed through. And I know it's changed for the better now. So we're going back 40 years. Yeah, it was quite an experience.
So that brings up a topic then about being authentic as women. So let's just talk about that, because, you know, sometimes there's pushback to be a certain way in certain environments. And, you know, you're talking about 40 years ago. I'm talking about corporate, where, you know, women delayed having children. I'll give you my story. I went to corporate, and at that point, I didn't think I was going to start a family. And then I got pregnant. And there was a hush over the crowd in my executive level, because they thought, oh, this is going to be good. It was not met well. Right. And I took the year off. And that was the first year you could take the year off as well. So I think stuff has changed, but how much has changed? And what is it that women do now to be more authentic in their space? I'm curious of people's perspective on that. Have we come a long way, or are we still kind of sitting around in mud?
I'll jump in if you want. I was just, it's so funny you're saying this. I was just coaching a client last week. She's a manager. She's, you know, trying her best. She's doing the best she can. She has this this way that she thinks she needs to show up. Like, she's a very caring person. She goes in and she cares for people. She she brings that into her work. It's lovely. And then we had a discussion. It was a Monday morning. I was coaching her, and I said, "How are you doing?" And she confided that her father-in-law had just passed away on the Friday before, and he passed away of COVID. And I said, "Oh my," we talked about that, and I found out that she didn't tell her staff. So her staff had no idea that she went through this loss, and he was a big piece of her life. And she didn't tell her staff because she felt that she was the manager and she had to hold it together for everybody else, and that her role was to take care of them. And how could she show any weakness? I mean, that's just, again, where she came from her upbringing and culture and all of that. And so we had quite a discussion around that. It was, it just really hurt my heart to hear this woman struggling and yet couldn't bring that vulnerability into the workplace. And we even talked about, how would she feel if one of her employees went through the same thing and she couldn't care for them or take care of them? And it wasn't until we started having those conversations around being real and vulnerable, and she knows the importance of trust, that she realized that her employees needed to take care of her, that was part of, of something really important that would build those relationships. And we had that whole discussion around being authentic and vulnerable. But I just thought it was so interesting because we do bring in our pasts, our cultures, our upbringing, even our schooling. When I went to school and studied business, back when I was there, it was nice guys finish last, and women have to listen to men. There was all kinds of these different messages that we learned, and sometimes we believed as a result back then. So just interesting when we have that conversation.
That's such a good point. I just want to springboard off that, Lori. A lot of the women that I work with are women of color that are in leadership positions. And when we just prior to this, we talked about what are some of the roadblocks about authenticity. One of them is, and I'll speak for myself, is and I had fairly liberal parents, is the cultural upbringing. Did I know who I was? No. But did I achieve quickly? Yes, because that was expected education-wise and all of that. I get into the workspace, and at that point, I'm not even sure who I am. I have a position of power because I'm in a leadership position, and I'm looking around to see what works. So again, I'm getting further and further away from my authenticity. I am covering a lot of who I am, as in what are my values and how I'm showing up. So my authenticity felt like it was a bit delayed. And the only way that I was able to start to see who I was simple things that, can I put my head on my pillow knowing what I've done? Have I supported who I need to? And it was on those kind of conversations, knowing that I had a depth of cultural upbringing that shaped who I was. And I needed to now, does this work? Does this work? What is it? Who am I in the middle of all of that? And again, I would say, I was probably embarrassed to say a little that I was probably at least 5 to 8 years in leadership positions before I really started to own who I was. And that's because of the cultural layer of my upbringing.
With parity or lack of parity, should I say, in female leadership roles, like through COVID, I was reading an article, they actually didn't fill roles that could have be filled by executive women on boards. They kept them open, even though there were women that could fill them. And that I find fascinating that's still occurring, because women in leadership, they bring a different subset, and it's been proven. I don't know the actual percentage of productivity increase when you have a lot more women in senior leadership or even on boards, and it's quite high. Lubna, you were going to say something?
Yes, and it goes back to your question, how are we doing? And I think the environment, so the cultural environment and the organization's environment also will help nurture, female workers to be more authentic in their leadership. So to me, a leader does not have to have people, to manage. It's about self-leadership as well. And I do believe that there's a big responsibility for the senior leadership team to nurture the environment so female workers and leaders could thrive and be more authentic. And a great example, that comes to my mind is we see some female leaders in high positions and they're miserable. Like they're acting like men. We thrive on connections. Our hormones, our DNA is made to connect, and that's how we get joy. And yet they want to be just like the male in that environment. And you and I work with them, and they're truly not themselves. They're just playing a role, the expected, the unwritten rules of leadership in that organization. And I think the more we can work with these leaders to let go of these barriers, these unwritten expectations, the better we will become, and as a responsible society to help female thrive. This is a great example is healthcare. We have 90% of nursing is female, and just go up the ladder little and all you see is male. And so we have some barriers to cross there, but we're getting there slowly and surely. It comes back to us, as leaders, to really drive that environment to where it should be.
Go ahead, Colleen.
So I come from a kind of a different tack here. I've led a lot of meditation retreats, and some of them have been large. And the meditation retreats have a very strong structure and a very strong, the schedule is strong, the rules are strong. And this creates this, it's like, I've been on retreats where people don't buy in to the structure, the rules. And on those retreats, the people who are disruptors create a lot of drama that detracts from the main goal of doing your meditation. And I got good over years. Like I've been giving retreats for over 30 years. And I got good at explaining to people why all of those rules were made specifically so that they could come into, like I likened it to, if you go to a party and you spend all of your time fighting with the house, you don't get to be at the party. And this is when people come to a meditation retreat and they don't buy into the structure, the rules, and then they don't get to have the meditation. They get to do this drama instead. And this is what happens in corporate. It's like there's a structure for creating their product. There's a structure for their sales, but there is no structure for the internal environment. And so what happens is mob rules. And not only does mob rule, but it creates a lot of drama, a lot of politics, a lot of unsafe space. So I think, from my perspective, that there needs to be a structure for the social interaction that is kind, that is uplifting, that allows people to really to really embrace collaborative working together and lift everybody up. The thing of a rising tide lifts all boats. This needs to be in corporate. This needs to be in the emotional environment for corporate. There needs to be a structure, and it needs to be a structure that people understand is going to make them more profitable, more productive than this drama and this fighting, and people are going to disagree, but how do they treat each other in it? And so, yes, kindness should be in there, but I think you can have a structure. Meditation retreats tell me that there can be a structure for treating each other well and creating a culture that people feel safe in, creative in, and collaborative in. And they will also be in harmony with their own values. This is not important to corporate, but it should be, because their companies are going to be more productive and more profitable if they pay attention to the culture of the social environment in their businesses.
So like a kindness metric, Lori, like we should add that to, one of the business metrics that they do, like somewhere, I don't know. I thought of that off the top of my head, knowing the work that you do, right? Because what we're talking about is quite literally I always use Penny's line, playing nice in the sandbox, but to some degree, that's what it is, right? We all have differences. But do I have to be a certain way to get along, other than I have to be gentle and kind? But sometimes people Some people have gotten up the ranks with just being able to bulldoze, and they haven't had to change that behavior. And who's keeping them accountable? Potentially, right? But I like that idea, Colleen, of adding it to some kind of whether it's part of performance evaluation, corporate culture questions, all those things, but not just something that maybe a company does once in a while. When something goes wrong, we have to look into what went wrong. Why not it be an ongoing thing that they do often to find out how people to take the pulse of what's really going on? Anybody else want to say anything? Penny.
Key layer there. I come from a different environment. I mean, I work in corporate space now, but I was a senior leader on a university campus. My career started as an academic individual. And so all of those are really great until you throw in tenure, and then you're protected from whatever behavior you want to exhibit. And while corporate entities don't necessarily have tenure, sometimes they have subtle tenure. I've called it many times. And so I think that that's the tricky piece too, is looking at the parameters of accountability and looking at if there is an actual shelf life on when you're willing to review the contributions that people are making. The trick on the campus as well is, so when I was associate dean, there were only 4 positions on the dean's cabinet, myself and 3 other people. So as I was moving up the ranks as a young female, no one wanted to help me, including other females, because we were all vying for the same spot. So there's a layer of, we'll be kind, and I'll be kind and helpful to you as long as my kindness keeps you beneath me. So when you're looking at that layer of kindness, there's this component of, I guess, altruism, for lack of a better thing, but the idea that I love the quote that rising tides raise all ships. I see it lots of places, but most people are like, but my ship still needs to be the highest. And so there has to be another depth to that besides that quote, which I, again, love. And the idea of investing in everyone is really important. And from a neuroscience perspective, all the research on neuroscience and satisfaction, it tells us, because this is an area that I research in a lot, it tells us that when we actively contribute to the experiences of people around us, when we positively contribute, when we choose to be humane just because we're there and not because we're going to get social media attention, we have a better sense of satisfaction and a deeper sense of satisfaction. And so curbing that ego piece, Penny, that you talked about earlier, is the invitation to have a deeper sense of satisfaction. And then when you get there, the ego goes away. The greater sense of satisfaction you have in self and existence, the easier it is to let go of all those ego pieces that are holding you back in the first place. But we have systemic opportunities to ignore all of the science that tells us that what we're doing is wrong. So I think that becomes problematic, and that will take a lot of aggressive overhaul, and there will need to be lots of champions for change in all environments. Higher ed is tricky and toxic for a lot of women who are vying for a very small number of roles in an old school cultural environment.
Sure. Penny, you were going to say something earlier.
Yeah, I was going to say that, COVID has changed a lot of things for women. And one of the things that it has changed is it has put us back about 50 years of development and equality, because I'm from Ontario, Canada. We are actually still in lockdown here, and women are nurturers of the children. I don't want to stereotype families, but typically, if there's a problem that mom or dad can't go to work, mom's the one who's staying home with the kids, and whether it be entrepreneurs or working women. Canada recognizes this huge challenge now for women who have all this additional conflict in their life, and conflict meaning, the absence of peace. They've got a full-time job, they've got their kids at home, they're trying to homeschool, and so that's, the grains of sand have shifted, and it's not just for women, of course, for organizations, entrepreneurs, businesses, and everything. And so I think one of the most important things that we can do now going forward that I think is so inspirational is we get to recreate our castles. Now we get to build our sand castles on solid ground. And what I find really inspiring about that, because that kind of sounds like a lot of work, but what I find inspiring about that is if you look at your competitors, everybody's sandcastle just got leveled by the COVID tidal wave that came in. And so anyone who was an expert in conflict resolution before January 2020 isn't really any more of an expert than I am right now, right? So in whatever industry that you're in, I think that that's really inspiring, is that things are different now. Look at us. We're all gathering from around the world on a Zoom call. Like we weren't doing this a year and a half ago. So I think that there's so much opportunity for us to recognize what kind of authentic life we want to live, piece that together with an awesome career that ties well with a really well-balanced personal life and build it from the ground up. I don't know about other countries or provinces, but I know ours is, Canada is really supporting women in, they've got billions of dollars going out to really help women. And I would imagine, I'm just assuming that a conference like this is getting some funding, just like some of the other conferences that I've been to. So it's a struggle. It's a time that women are under a lot of pressure, but we will emerge stronger than ever. And another thing that I wanted to say is, having just done a survey about the effects of workplace conflict in COVID, or the effect of COVID on workplace conflict, there's actually more conflict now that people are not going into the office. There's more conflict. I was worried about my career a year ago going, workplace conflict, nobody's even at work. But we did a survey, and one of the underlying factors is that distance erodes trust. So when we're not all going into the office and seeing each other and being in each other's energy and, just absorbing the surrounding that people are working, and we're stuck in isolation, and we get spinning in our own heads and making stuff up, which causes a lot of conflict that's not even really known by managers yet. So the managers, in the survey results, the managers don't think that there's a lot of conflict, but the employees are reporting that there's a lot more conflict. So people are stressed. They have a lot more work to do. And I had a pretty equal participation of women to men, managers to employers. So a pretty good, or managers to employees. So a pretty good cross section of a lot of the demographics. But people are really stressed with the extra workload. There's a lot of extra workload. And distance has certainly eroded trust. Communication is lacking. And I think although there's a lot of this meetings by Zoom and everything that's keeping teams more connected than they used to be because they can gather people together efficiently, it's the deeper conversations, I think, that are lacking. And I think a lot of people have survived COVID, but how many are really thriving? How many organizations are really thriving? So those are some of the interesting factors that my company has uncovered recently with regards to women and stressors and conflict and working and what's to come.
A lot more work available to a lot of people based on the capacity that they're working in. Somebody was saying something. I heard someone's voice. Jessica?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to echo what Penny was just saying. I literally left a virtual presentation where we were talking about teamwork, collaboration, and positive and managing conflict. And to your point, Penny, as soon as we started talking about trust, which comes pretty early in the session, I got 2 or 3 private messages from a group that I hadn't met saying, I'm so glad that you brought up trust. This is such an important factor. And so, just at the end of the session, the team was so grateful to their leader that we had just held space for them to have dialogue. It wasn't a traditional training where we're trying to download all kinds of information. There was a lot of opportunity for people to catch up and visit with each other. And we did an exercise called group resume. And afterwards, during the debrief, I said, what is the value of activities like this? Because, the naysayers will say, oh, well, that's just, some stupid little gimmicky thing to make everybody smile and laugh. But truly, the trust side, that opportunity to develop trust, and in the absence of communication, how that trust just starts to erode, regardless of where we stand with that person as far as the relationship goes. So well said, Penny, and nice to hear that my anecdotal experience aligns with your hard research.
Yeah. Well, and another challenge with this goes before COVID, but what really gets in the way of human connection is digital texting, messaging, right? And when you get humans together face to face, even on Zoom, you put them in breakout rooms, but we get to see each other, we get to hear tone and, see, vocal variety and hand gestures. There's magic in that connection. And I think that a lot of people are recognizing the challenges with just texting and emails, and even I don't know if you've tried to get service lately from any subscription that you have or something on it, and they want everything nobody wants to talk on anymore. Nobody wants to talk. Well, I shouldn't say nobody. I want to talk. I want somebody to call me and hold my hand and walk through things. Or, if I have an issue or I'm hiring a subcontractor and I want to hash things out, I want a conversation about that. But my younger subcontractors, they're sending me videos, at 9 o'clock at night, oh, hi, I just thought I'd give you an update. And that's all lovely and everything, but it's just a one-way conversation. So, authentic conversation is really, I think it's the magic elixir for connection.
We need more of that, even though we have more capacity to connect. It's I know everybody on this call, and some of them I've met and some of them I've not, right? But the ones that I've met in person, I feel like I know more, and I can't wait to meet the people that I've never met in person. It's not like I'm oh, I met Kanchan, but I don't I want to meet these people now. It's it closes the loop for me, because now I feel like I know them, but I really need to be with them. So that yearning, I think, is something that's very, very real.
A layer of, Penny, what you were talking about too, I don't want it in writing that I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll ask you that question in real life. Jessica, I can see you laughing. So because that's real, especially new people or a new project or those kinds of things. There's this layer of when I could walk down the office or walk down the hallway and your office was there, or those kinds of pieces, I'm willing to say, hey, can I double check a couple of things? And I could frame it how I could frame it, and you could hear it how I could hear it, and you could hear in my voice that I was confident in my ideas, but I wasn't sure where we were going with them or whatever it is. But I'm not going to text you that I don't know what's happening, because then you have a record of the fact that there was a moment where I didn't know what was happening, and I'm devastated at the idea that might come back to haunt me. And I'm for sure not going to put it in an email, because I can cross my fingers and hope that maybe when you get a new cell phone, all your messages will disappear, but your email is forever, right? Those are the conversations that I've had with younger professionals. I don't know, because they do a lot of internal instant messenger equivalent, right, with work. And there's I would rather type, hey, can we schedule a call, than the thing. And I'm going to say it's because I have a really long, or I want to give you context or whatever it is. But for a lot of people, it is the anxiety of documented evidence that they are uncertain, because nobody wants anyone to ever say, you aren't 100% all in all the time, or what have you. So I think that's one of those pieces that comes up in this mix too, is the authentic conversation allows for insecurities to be audibly represented without feeling so traceable or trackable.
So hence the decrease in trust then, because if I'm going to run into you at the water cooler or in the lunchroom, I'm going to be able to share some things. But if I'm not seeing you and I really need guidance, and I know with some of my colleagues, I just pick up the phone and then I can, I do that more because of COVID, because I'm like, you're right, you're living alone, you're working alone, those types of things. But a lot of people are going the opposite way. So hence that would breed, we're mammals, we need to connect, right? And is digital connection the same as in-person connection? Absolutely not. If anything, I don't know about many of you, but when I'm on Zoom calls for like 6 hours compared to if I were to see somebody for 6 hours, I'm far more tired after Zoom. Apparently there's a part of the brain that we're utilizing that much more to be able to focus compared to what we do in person, and hence the kind of the lethargy and stuff that a lot of us are experiencing. So that's the part. So we're not seeing each other, we're not connecting, we're not doing the eyeball to eyeball. We're not able to read nonverbals, right? Like I could see half of most of you, but I can't tell what's really kind of going on, and I know a lot of you are very expressive in knowing you in person. So that part of it is going to be hard. Now, everybody here on the line is a mom, right? I don't want to marginalize anybody. And we've had such fantastic discussion about authenticity that I want to ask you, how is it that you deal with that with parenting, being moms, right? It's a Mother's Day summit. How do you do that well or not well? And I know I've not done it not well many times, to create that space to keep the vulnerability and the authenticity with your family or your kids.
One of the ways that I've done it, Roxanne, is I grew up with parents that gave their heart, soul, everything, immigrants, doing everything they possibly could for us in a physical sense. Emotionally, I did not hear the I love yous. And one of the ways that I'm very authentic with my kids is I share that, and I very much I'm a very vocal love you to a point where I got told, I could back off a little, Mom, which is, I was just making up for my own childhood, I think. But it was a matter of how I raised my kids is different in that I'm taking the best of my parents and kind of going, okay, I'm at a pivotal point here. Kids knew at a very young age that my only wish for them was to be contributors to this world. Not to take away, but to be contributors, which is quite different than the highly educated expectations my parents had of us. And so to be authentic was to really get alignment with myself. What is important? And for me, connecting with my kids in all different, spiritual, emotional, physical ways, as well as giving them a clear path. That was a real big shift for me in how I show up with my kids. Sharon, I think you're next because Roxanne.
Okay, Roxanne. So I found, because I have a daughter and a son, and, to treat them equally, I had to treat them differently. So my daughter was extremely shy, painfully shy, and I had to gently, push her forward. And my son had his foot on the pedal all the time. And it was teach him to kind of pull back. And I think I mentioned earlier, my husband had ALS and he was in a wheelchair. And so when my daughter was born and growing up, she didn't see him different. He wasn't disabled, right? He just, he used a wheelchair to get around, but he was her dad. And I think, a part of that was just myself at home. It was this was my husband, and even when he lost the ability to walk and to talk, and it was just always, he's equal with me in this relationship. And so my daughter saw that, and then I would see her go out and play with other children and just be so open. And I did share with you, some of you know, I did lose my daughter at 15 to cancer, and at that point my son was 11. And it was us coming together again. And what does the world even look like? And I think I mean, everything just crashed. I was exhausted after losing my husband and then my daughter as well. And so, you know, I changed, of course. You know, I was very dark and you know, didn't see the world as a friendly place for myself and my son, and maybe a little overprotective with him, until one day I realized that he was giving up his opportunity to go out and play with his friends because he was worried about how sad I was. And it was like a lens that he was seeing the world. And like, as parents, our children are always looking through our eyes. And so that was a big shift for me to take the armor off, the soldier taking her armor off and getting vulnerable and getting sad and finding some compassion, you know, even for myself, for not finding a cure for my two loved ones. And I think my son witnessed that. They're always witnessing. They witness everything that we do. We can't get away with it. We just can't, you know, if we're not authentically who we are, they'll see it. And my son and I had to create a new life. And we fed the homeless every Christmas Day. That was what we did on Christmas Day. I mean, we did a lot of volunteer work. We started charity in my daughter's memory. And you know, I'm happy to say he's 25 now, and he's this kind, strong, handsome man. And I think staying positive and always seeing the bigger picture and much compassion and curiosity, and just the fact that I was able to see the world again is a beautiful place. Like, I feel like I was held in grace. So I know there were a lot of people around me, my mentors, that held me, you know, in that space when I was really struggling. Yeah.
Full story, Sharon. Just you know, with adversity, how do you then like hold on to that space and try to create something, like you said, to look at the world again with joy after so much grief must have been a tough space. And just being as warm and kind as, if someone did not know Sharon and you met her, you would not have known that Sharon has gone through that. I'll say she has 25 lives, I think. I'm counting mine now, because she's done so much and you would never know some of these things. So thanks for sharing that, Sharon. Laura, you were going to say something earlier as well.
And I'm not sure of the time, so I didn't want to go over. I think, you know, gosh, Sharon, your story is amazing and so inspiring. And as you're talking, what I was thinking about too, is just how we share different things at different points of our lives with our kids. So Kanchan, I love that you said, you know, you learned from your parents and you said, I love you. Way. We never said that. And now that's all I say to my daughter. And I make my daughter hug, because we never grew up hugging either. Not that we didn't love each other. We absolutely did. But now it's like, no, you're hugging me. And so what I found is that I know there was a point in my life where we were under extreme crisis. And as a mom, I had to hold it together for everybody. For my daughter, for my husband, for my mom, and I was holding it together. And you can't, at least I couldn't, show any vulnerability at that point, or my castle would have crumbled. So out of sheer just survival, I was brave and held things together for a very long period of time, which wears on you as a woman and as a mom and as a wife, and it's tiring and exhausting. And so finding ways during those times where you have to be strong and braver and whatever, more than any, I had to rely on my friends. I had to get professional help. And I remember the best advice at that time was, gosh, Lori, we're all different, but in my life, it's God first, then you, then your husband, then your daughter. But really what was going on, it was my daughter first, and then everybody else got this tiny little bit. So I found I needed that outside voice to give me permission to put things back. Could take a longer. And I needed that healing for something else. But now that she's older, I'm still never going to share, but we have these real honest conversations now that can help her as she's a mom, children growing up. And I find that I can be really honest and vulnerable and real with her, and I love it. And yeah, it's just amazing. But I think we change too as we get older, and we embrace that more of that vulnerability and get stronger in ourselves. But there's different stages in our lives that impact us also.
For me, a mom with younger kids, one of the things that I've really tried to embrace a lot lately is to let them see the full range of emotion. Particularly right now, going through something that we've never ever been through before as a society. I want them to see me laughing, but I also want them to see me crying and understanding that parents are people too, because I think that we tend to put our parents on a pedestal, and I know that I've done that with my own mother, who's been the biggest role model of my life. And we actually had some conflict a couple weeks ago, my mom and I. She was hiding her emotions from me to try to be strong. And I said to her, Mom, by doing that, what you're actually doing is robbing me of the opportunity to be compassionate and empathetic towards you. So I need to see who you are. I need to know what you're going through so that I can support you as well. And, you know, my kids are 8 and 10 right now. I want them to be able to support me. I want them, you know, we've had a really wild 3 months in particular on the health front, where a close relative was diagnosed as terminal. And I wanted to make sure that the children understood the gravity of that situation. I didn't want to traumatize them. I didn't want to scar them, but I didn't want to hide the emotion from them, so that they got this real lived, authentic experience. And hopefully that would influence how they showed up as they grow up and become adults.
So they need to see us as being real, and to also cry or have the cracks, because that allows them to accept the vulnerability within themselves as well. That it's okay, and it's okay not to have the answers, or not be put together, or look a certain way, or act a certain way when things are tough, because that makes them realize that when they're going through that they can also, it's okay. We all have things that happen in life that are not good. Now, this has been fantastic. Erica, I see you want to say something, and what I want to do is I want to have you say something, and I want for anybody listening, and you want to give a tip for them about what you think someone can do to get more authentically connected to themselves. What's one quick tip that you can give them, or something for them to consider, or something for them to think about? Go ahead, Erica, and then we'll just open it up.
I just wanted to say, one of the things that I have littles also, Jessica. I have a first grader and a kindergartner. So acknowledging that piece of authenticity with littles is really great, because then you get to experience the full range of who they are differently, because they're not trying to protect or present a version of themselves. My kids love to say that and my partner and I are very intentional about this. We'll talk about it, and they'll say, you're the best mom, or you're the best dad. And always 100%, if my partner were standing here, he would vouch for this. We always say, I'm not the best, but I'm your best. Because that's another thing, is the metric of best is broken and flawed and not consistent, right? So I tell my kids that my goal is to be their best mom, because I know they're going to be my best Paisley and my best Gretchen. And I know that some days that is really hard and that looks messy. So we talk about living an acknowledgetic life. So acknowledge the pieces first. I think sometimes we shift straight to apology and I'm sorry for the thing, and we don't acknowledge the emotions that led to the transgression. So when you live an acknowledgetic life, you say, hey, I am feeling some things inside, and I made this choice, and I know this choice hurt you, but I also need to talk about what's going on with me, and helping kids with that. So I'll just say, if that was my piece, or my tip, it's acknowledgetic is so much more powerful and gets you to authenticity quicker, because it allows you to exist in what you're feeling rather than in the actions piece, and it helps for greater alignment. So those were my thoughts as we were talking about kids and life in
love
general.
that word. I hope you have it trademarked.
Oh, I don't. You all can share. And also, Roxanne, you can absolutely start signing your emails authentically yours. You know what it does? It's an accountability thing, because it means that I show up exactly as myself in every email, because I know at the bottom I told people I did. So it's my secret.
Awesome. Consider it stolen. Anybody else? Go ahead, Lubna.
I think for me, if there's one thing I would say is be present, be in the moment. I wish I can take the years back. My girls are 21 and 17, and I learned the lesson, I would say 11 years before that, through a development class for leadership. But being present, so your mind is completely not distracted, and finding time, at least you're completely in the moment with them, no matter what, where nothing else, no phones, no message, no thought, no work, just them, watching them speak, looking at their eyes, noticing the little stuff you don't notice, and making that part of your daily exercise. I think that would be something that would truly create not only your authenticity, but make them even more comfortable in their own authentic self.
Anybody else?
I was just going to
Sharon, and then Kanchan, and then Penny.
So I'm just thinking of something that I started doing during COVID, which was journaling every morning. And it really brings a lot of self-awareness, and things will start coming up. The same thing will start coming up and bring it to light. So it's something I did with, I think it's Julie Cameron, right? She does the morning pages. And she said, they teach us the art of self-investment. And I just thought, wow, that's, and I know looking back what's been coming up on the pages itself, it's like, oh, I think I need to pay attention to this, there's no longer sweeping it under the rug. So I think if you have half an hour a day, it would be a really nice thing to do. Yeah.
And I guess for me, the thing that comes up is, and it's already been sort of touched on, it's going within. It's one of the first tips is in whatever situation you're in, pausing and not reacting, taking a moment to pause and know that you are at choice. You have choice at that moment in terms of whatever action you're making. And it's the pause that makes the difference for me.
Yeah, I love that idea, Kanchan. I had quite a few thoughts as people were talking, but story that everyone tells about when you're on the airplane and they say if you're traveling with kids and the mask falls, they'll put theirs on first, and people, and why, and people say, yeah, but it's because you have to be well to take care of somebody else. But there's another reason why, and that's because you're leading by example. So imagine if you just put this foreign object on a 2-year-old, without putting yours on first. He or she's just going to rip it off. But as women, moms, when we lead by example, our kids are watching that, right? And I think that one of the most important lessons that I've learned is doing what's right doesn't always feel good. It's not like sometimes we have to do things that don't feel good. In my example, for example, in my life, I broke the mold, was the first person in my family to get a divorce. And, I'm the relationship guru. So living in a small town, that was a big deal. A lot of talk of the town and gossip. But I was living an inauthentic life. I was teaching one thing and living something else, and I couldn't do that anymore. And so that breakup, that breaking up of my family was really hard to do, but it was really important for me to do. And I think that it made it really hard for me to parent 2 teenagers, because when you're trying to parent with 2 different parents, when you're trying to parent your child and there's no connection with the other parent, that's really hard. That's really hard to do. Because, you might want to reprimand them, but then you don't want to, because then, like, what if they don't ever want to come to see you again because they can go stay at their dad? Like, it gets really complicated. So that was really a big challenge, for me with my young teenagers. And it took a long time. It took a long time to sort out. But I think now, looking back after 6 years, I think that I hope that my daughter never feels that she has to settle for a relationship that's not healthy, that's not kind, that's not loving. And I hope that my son also sees lessons from, the male perspective that, like the softer side of what women need, I hope that my son understands by example some of the emotional needs that that just might help him along with relationships. So it's a lot about, for me, recognizing how I parent. My kids are in their early 20s now. I don't have them under my roof, but I can keep leading by example and showing them by being the best version of myself, or trying.
Thank you so much. Jess, did you want to say something?
I was just echoing what Penny said, but for me, maybe to close things out, authenticity is about having the clarity, confidence, and courage to be your true self. So I think that this echoes a lot of what other people said. The clarity piece for me is about understanding who you are, and we've seen those comments from our panelists. Who are you? And what understanding the answer to the question, what makes me so special? And then the confidence comes from applying that to our context. So being able to understand how that can be relevant and useful. And then the courage part is about making it happen and taking inspired action, doing the things that are going to light us up inside, which often does take courage. So for me, that's the summary for what authenticity means: clarity, confidence, and courage. That starts with number one.
Couldn't have said it any better. And this has been amazing. Oh my goodness. I feel so privileged, to know everybody, including Erica now. This has been fantastic. To me, authenticity means just letting it be real. Just be who you are, who needs to go and who needs to stay, and who needs to come in, presents. And this gathering of you together today shows me that I think I'm on my authentic path, that I've attracted such amazing people in my life. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing this today. And I know I will see many of you tomorrow morning, and the others I'll connect. And Erica, I look forward to, and Jessica's going to show us how to do the heart, because she's the best at it. She does that. So thank you. And I know we're almost at time, but if anybody needs anything at all, I will make sure that all your bios and everything get out with this event. I will get the recordings and make sure that you each have the opportunity to have it for yourself.
Thank you, Roxanne.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Wonderful meeting you all.
Roxanne, thank you, everyone.
And to those listening as well. Yeah.
Yes, and for everybody listening, thank you so much. And if you need to reach out, Erica, Concha, Sharon, Penny, Lori, Jessica, and Lubna, we'll make sure that you can connect with all of them. These phenomenal women bring a lot of expertise in their arenas, and please reach out to them if you need to consult. Take care. All right. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.